Chance, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Creeson Agecoutay. Thank you for joining us. The O-Pipon-Na-Piwin Cree Nation declared a state of emergency over the weekend following a series of stabbings in the community. The remote First Nation is located in northern Manitoba. Manitoba RCMP say a stabbing took place early Saturday morning at the community's nursing station. Another person with a possible stabbing was also treated at the station. Both people suffered a non-life-threatening injuries. A community-wide lockdown was then put in place early Saturday morning and was later lifted on Sunday. O-Pipon-Na-Piwin Chief Shirley Ducharme said in a statement that a state of emergency is needed for the good of the community. The Assembly of Manitoba chiefs say they are offended and disappointed after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau appointed former Winnipeg broadcaster Charles Adler to the Senate. They're now calling on Governor General Mary Simon and the Prime Minister to rescind Adler's appointment over comments he made on air in 1999. At the time, Adler called Indigenous leaders uncivilized boneheads and intellectually moribund during a protest by Indigenous people at the Manitoba legislature. The AMC calls Adler's comments vulgar and racist and want a senator who values inclusion, respect, and reconciliation. Adler spent decades working in broadcast journalism and for 20 years hosted a conservative radio talk show on Winnipeg's CJOB. He is now an incoming independent senator for Manitoba. We'll have more on this story in our evening newscast with Dennis Ward. The accounting firm in charge of a Yukon mine that recently experienced a cyanide spill has fired the mining company's CEO. According to a report by the CBC, PricewaterhouseCoopers fired Victoria Gold CEO John McConnell over the weekend. The accounting firm was appointed as the mine's receiver last week after an application was filed by the Yukon government. The company's Eagle Gold Mine site, located on the traditional territory of the First Nation of Nacho-Nayakdun, experienced a heap leach failure in late June. The failure caused cyanide to be released into the surrounding environment. McConnell said in an email Monday he was proud of the company's achievements. Community members in Manitoba came out to remember Tina Fontaine with a walk in her home community on Saturday. It was the 10th anniversary of when the 15-year-old's body was discovered in the Red River in Winnipeg. Sav Jonza has more.
I held on to her for 10 long, agonizing years because when she died, part of me died also. Now she wants me to let go, let her be at peace, and for me to go on with my life.
Losing Tina Fontaine hasn't gotten any easier for her great-aunt, Thelma Favel. Favel was Fontaine's guardian for many years before she was put back under the care of Child and Family Services. Soon after, Fontaine went missing. Her body later found in the Red River near the Alexander Docks in Winnipeg. 10 years after the discovery, Favel says it's now time to say goodbye.
You now live in our hearts and our memories, and no one can ever take that away. Bye, Tina.
Favel was supported by several dozen people during a memorial walk in Seguin Anishinaabe Nation on Saturday. 120 kilometers northeast of Winnipeg, it's where Fontaine's body is laid to rest next to her father. Drums, singing, and grief could be heard on the journey to a monument for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
I was part of the walk 10 years ago when we did it in Winnipeg, and that's just starting to come in, and I feel really overwhelmed with emotion right now.
The vulnerable Fontaine was only 15 years old when she was navigating the downtown streets of Winnipeg leading up to her murder. She had been in and out of Child and Family Services care multiple times since she was 1 year old. Advocates say the CFS system failed her and that changes still need to be made 10 years later.
I think it remains the same, although, there is hope with the new child welfare legislation that's federal child welfare. I think, it gives the communities a say of where their children go, which is a good thing, right? They don't end up on the streets like the way Tina was exploited.
No one has been convicted in Fontaine's murder. The only man charged in her death was later acquitted and died earlier this year. Fontaine's story sparked the federal government's national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. 231 calls for justice came out of the report, but family friend Marilyn Creeson says they've gone unanswered.
We need to stop these people that are taking our girls off the street and taking them for whatever, whether it's sex trafficking, whether it's for, selling them. We have to stop that. That's our responsibility that we take today. So we need to do that. We need to figure something out, but the only way we can do it is simple. Work with yourself, work with your families, work with your community, work with your nation.
Families Minister Nahani Fontaine says it's thanks to Fontaine and the families of MMIWG2S that wider society is even aware of the ongoing crisis.
I always say that all of the work that MMIWG2S families did over the last 30, 40 years, it was a slow but very consistent process of planting seeds in the public consciousness that here is this issue. And Tina Fontaine's murder is what unleashed and allowed that to flourish.
Minister Fontaine says Seguin and Anishinaabe Nation has the highest numbers of MMIWG2S across the country. A message for the world was shared by those attending the walk. The lives of Indigenous people are sacred and need to be protected.
We just have to keep praying that this doesn't happen anymore. It has to stop sometime. And Tina started an earthquake when her body was found 10 years ago today. It was so devastating to hear that she was gone. And I was holding on to her. I was keeping her alive in my heart and in my mind. But today I'm saying goodbye to Tina.
Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Last week, the family of 44-year-old Keith Shannon Wilson from Pimicikamak Cree Nation was notified by Manitoba Shared Health that the funeral home received the wrong remains. The body was then sent to the funeral services, and the family unknowingly grieved for and buried the wrong person in Norway House in late July. The incident has left the Wilson family in serious shock, and the family will now have to organize another funeral for Keith Wilson. On July 12th, Wilson's body was found in the Jack River near Norway House Cree Nation after he went missing for a month. The cause of his death is still being investigated by police. Manitoba's Provincial Health Authority is now investigating the wrong body will be exhumed, and the First Nation is seeking a reimbursement. Now, Manitoba's Health Authority says what happened with the Wilson family doesn't appear to be an isolated incident.
Early results of our investigation have identified some concerning gaps in the processes that exist to prevent this type of occurrence. And we have become aware of 2 other near misses that have occurred in recent weeks. In both instances, the bodies were incorrectly signed out of our facilities and transported to a funeral home. These errors were identified, bodies were returned to our morgue, and families were notified of that mistake.
Manitoba's Shared Health says it takes full responsibility for the errors and is seeking an external partner who will help to review existing processes and offer recommendations moving forward. The Yukon's coroner's service is reporting a lower number of drug-related deaths in the territory compared to this time last year. The service has investigated 6 drug-related deaths this year compared to 12 deaths last year. Out of this year's 6 deaths, only 1 involved the use of cocaine. Benzodiazepines were also seen in 1 case. Meanwhile, 10 of the 12 deaths last year involved opioids, while 11 involved cocaine. The service says the situation in the territory looks to be improving. In total, it investigated 23 drug-related deaths in 2023. Cumberland House in Saskatchewan recently celebrated 250 years. We'll take you to the celebrations when we return. Stay with us. On July 1st, Canada celebrated its 157th year of existence under that name. But we all know that Indigenous people were here long before that, as well as several settler communities. Among them, Cumberland House in Saskatchewan, which very recently commemorated its 250th anniversary. First Nation University journalism student intern Randy LaRocque was there too and found this story.
We're getting real crazy up in here.
Picking cattails near Cumberland House is not the typical preparation for a party, but on this day, it is. They, along with flowers, will be used for centerpieces. And cattails are not just nice to look at. They have a healing property according to local Indigenous people.
So much of the nature that Creator has already gifted Cumberland House with, and taking some of that medicine and taking it to the tables to just like almost set the stage or set the energy for the celebration.
And this was no ordinary celebration. Hundreds turned out to take in the 250th anniversary of Cumberland House and its surrounding area.
A place so far away from everything could survive 250 years. Just totally amazing.
The three-day event kicked off on August 11th. A historical theme parade made its way through the community. There were speeches and food and dancing, all with Métis and First Nations culture front and center.
It was really just a really beautiful time to reflect on so many amazing things that have made Cumberland House as successful, as resilient, and as strong as a community as they are today.
The community, located around 450 kilometers northeast of Saskatoon, has a population of around 2,000. The Cumberland House Cree Nation and other reserves are all part of the original settlement. Historically, the community served as a key supply depot because of its location on the Saskatchewan River, including the fur trade that attracted settlers from all around. And it was not always great for those already living there.
A lot of that history is also marred by a lot of difficult and tragic events that settlers and my ancestors were a part of.
Several generations of families have made Cumberland House home, some dating back to when it was first established. Naturally, not everyone stays in one place. Métis, like First Nations, are nomadic, setting up homesteads all over Western Canada. So in a sense, this is a homecoming.
If you look back into the history that they're talking about, we're all connected. So it means a lot.
The connection to the land and water is strong as the people who live here, while not forgetting their past. A tribute to those who've traveled the lakes and rivers was unveiled. A giant set of canoe oars now sits on the edge of town, greeting visitors.
They're showcasing the way they live.
And looking forward to passing on more than 2 centuries of history.
For our youth and the children.
In Cumberland House, I'm Randy LaRocque.
One of Vancouver's most popular tourist attractions will soon be removed from Stanley Park. A breathtaking totem pole that's towered over Brockton Point for decades is showing signs of age and needs a new home. CTV's St. John Alexander has the details.
Caquet-Celas and its central significant position among this stunning cluster has become such a fixture, such a delight for tourists and locals for so long, its soaring Thunderbird may have been taken for granted. What most people probably don't know, the totem pole has always been on loan. Placed here in the 1980s, Caquet-Celas is beginning to reveal its age.
And as many poles, once they reach this around the 40-year mark, like the rest of us, things require a little bit more care.
Sometime after Labor Day, to give everyone time to soak in its splendor, take a few last selfies, the totem pole will be taken down and brought back to the Museum of Anthropology at UBC.
Specialists have been hired to carefully relocate the totem pole in one piece.
There, it will be examined and restored where needed. To ensure carpenter ants and termites don't appreciate it too much, Caquet-Celas will also be treated. Carved by Ellen Neal way back in 1955 when she was hired by the Woodward's department store, it actually stood in Edmonton for 35 years before being brought back to BC.
Interestingly, actually carved this totem pole back in 1955 in Stanley Park. She had an informal carving pavilion set up there at Ferguson Point.
And once Kakasalas receives the care it deserves, it will become a museum fixture for even more generations to admire. St. John Alexander, CTV News, Vancouver.
A father continues to speak out for his daughter who was suddenly taken from them last November. That interview when we return, we're back in less than 3 minutes. Over to the east, Halifax 21, Charlottetown 26. Nujuak 15, Nain 14. Gaspé 16, Val-d'Or 13. Windsor 17, Ottawa 18. Timmins 24, Big Trout Lake 18 as well. God's Lake 21, Puckatawagan 22. Brandon 24, 21 in Gimli. Swift Current 24, North Battleford 23. LaRange 21, Stony Rapids 17. 24 in Peace River, Fort Chipewyan 25. Calgary 26, Edmonton 25. Tofino 17, Kamloops 26. Prince Rupert 18, Fort Nelson 24. 16 in Watson Lake, Dawson 14. 20 in Yellowknife, Norman Wells 14. Fort McPherson 15, and Nunavut 13. Chesterfield 16, Cambridge Bay 19. And Clyde River 13, Arctic Bay 11. Today marks 287 days for a family in Moose Factory Cree Nation in Northern Ontario who are still grieving the loss of their loved one who was suddenly taken from them. On November 7th at around 3 a.m. on a Tuesday morning on Jaban Street in Moose Factory, police were notified about a young woman with critical injuries. 21-year-old Lonnie Chum was taken to hospital by ambulance where she later died. The OPP determined Chum was struck by a pickup truck that left the scene. This week, the Ontario government is offering a $50,000 reward for information that can lead to an arrest and a conviction. Last weekend, an awareness walk was held for Lonnie in Moose Factory where everyone wore purple in her memory. We spoke to Robert Chum on Monday, the father of Lonnie Chum, who told us more about the investigation and about Lonnie. Robert, thank you for talking to us during this difficult time. You said in a Facebook post you made about 2 days ago that there is going to be an update in the investigation. What are you able to tell us about that without compromising the investigation?
Compromising is, I guess, what the update was the reward that I wanted to keep confidential until it was announced. Because I know that the take of the investigation is going on. The process is slow. You know, being from a small community like Moose Factory and everybody's tight knit, they tend to keep their knit close. I guess what do you call it? Everybody keeps quiet. Nobody talks. So, but with the reward, hopefully people come forward and start talking. That's what it was all about. So.
Yeah, I hear you. On August 11th, on a Sunday, you, the family, and the community hosted an awareness walk to keep Lonnie's memory alive. What was that event like for you?
It was touching. It was. I'm very proud of my community members, my leader, my chief. I got to acknowledge him, Peter Wesley, and my deputy chief, Warren Hardesty. Also to the staff of the executive services of Moose Cree to helping us organize it. We planned it on our own. We just wanted to start off like as a family. Next thing you know, it bloomed up. I made an announcement a week prior while I was on vacation with my spouse. And then we came back and people were willing to help out, to give us anything to help us out with the walk. And a lot of people showed up. Almost 200 showed up. Because it was a good appearance from everybody on Sunday afternoon in Moose Factory.
Wow, great turnout.
And we walked 3 kilometers and everybody did it.
Well, that's good to hear. How are you feeling about the government of Ontario helping with this investigation and offering a $50,000 reward there? Does that help?
It helps. It helps a lot. I know that we had talked to the chief and council about putting up a reward prior to this, but I know the OPP really, who I greatly appreciate, are doing a damn fine job with this investigation to match whatever Moose Cree did. So I know that came to $50,000. It came through from them. So I really, it helps out a lot, because I know that, like I said, it's been going on too long. 286 days today, and it's a struggle. Every day it's a struggle. But I'm glad that they stepped up, and it's about time.
What is your message to those who may know something about what happened to Lonnie that night?
My message to the people that know is please come forward. It's a struggle. I just want them to know that, like, what they know will help us have closure for our family. I know Lonnie's still speaking. Lonnie's still walking, and she's waiting for closure. She's still skipping. She's skipping stones waiting for this. And I hope that, this message will reach out to all the community members that know within the tight-knit group that they are that are out there. And it's just finding the words today is different, because I'm so used to just let my words flow, like. But it's hopefully that they come forward. We can bring us closure for our family and for Lonnie, because we had planned to bury Lonnie once we get closure. We have her ashes here, and once we get closure from all this, we're going to bury her at her camp, where she loved being every spring, every fall. She loved being there. That's where she grew up, and that's where her passion was, and we felt that it was her wish to be buried there, and we want to grant that wish for her.
Yeah. What kind of young woman was Lonnie, and what were some of her dreams?
Lonnie's dream was just she wanted to live life. She wanted to be a hunter. She wanted to live off the land like her dad, my dad, her great-grandfather, our great-grandfather. That's what she wanted to do. And I know that she would want that. And she was outgoing. She wasn't shy. She had a lot of friends. She was very sympathetic to others as well. She was very caring to people that she didn't know. She'd reach out to people like on Facebook or through Messenger, like she sees somebody struggling or somebody sad or heartbroken from a death. She would always reach out, and she'd always give her confidence, her confidence speech, I guess they call it.
Yeah.
But she was strong. She was strong. She was my strongest kid, my strongest one. She went through it all. She went through scoliosis surgery at 13. She had a bipolar. She was diagnosed with being bipolar at the same time, but she was a strong kid.
Yeah.
Like I said, she was one of the Aboriginal girls that was taken tragically on her own reserve.
Yeah. Well, Robert, thank you for your time. We'll be thinking of you and the family during this.
Thank you, Creeson. Thank you very much, and shout out to everybody out there. Thank you.
And that's our midday newscast for this Tuesday, August 20th. Dennis Ward will be at the desk for your evening national newscast with more stories. Make sure to join us in a few hours. From everyone at our HQ in Winnipeg and from our reporters and camera crew from across the country, hi miigwech masicho. Thank you for watching.